You are listening to the Cookbook Love Podcast with Maggie Green, episode number 414.
Welcome to the Cookbook Love Podcast, a podcast that celebrates cookbook readers, buyers, collectors, writers, and clubs. And now your host, cookbook author, culinary dietitian, and cookbook writing coach, Maggie Green.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Cookbook Love Podcast. How's everybody doing today? Hope you are all doing well. I am having a quiet day here in my cookbook bunker. We're having a nice thunderstorm outside, and I might have told this story before, but when my kids were little and they played baseball, the boys played baseball, I was always so excited when we'd have a summer thunderstorm because it usually meant baseball was canceled. It's terrible to say, but sometimes it was just nice to stay at home in a thunderstorm. Not a lot of sports play during a thunderstorm, but certainly if there's rain out, football might still go, soccer might still go, but I was always pretty sure they wouldn't play baseball if we had a thunderstorm. So I have fond memories of that and love a good thunderstorm. Garden's doing well. Tomatoes are turning a little yellow at the bottom. I think that generally happens this time of year. It's always a little disconcerting though, but I am keeping them watered. And even if you don't have a garden or a plot of grass to plant tomatoes in, I highly recommend you grow your tomatoes on your porch or patio. And I'll get the name of the pots. I don't have them right now, but I use these fabric felt pots with handles. They're very easy to move. They're lightweight. They're inexpensive, and they get great air circulation. And boy, have they been good for our tomatoes this year. It's not such a heavy thing to move around. One other funny story about the tomatoes is, you may not think it's funny, but I thought it was funny. I used a natural organic plant food to feed the tomatoes. Everything needs food and water, even plants. So, and it's made from decomposed fish. And I swear I can taste the fishy taste from the plant food when I eat the tomatoes. So I don't like that. I don't like that taste. So I've got to figure out what I can feed my tomatoes with that won't make the tomatoes taste not like a tomato. And I had the tomatoes the other day with some tuna salad, and I thought to myself, is the tuna salad like getting into the tomatoes? So maybe I thought it was from the tuna salad. Then on Sunday, we cooked breakfast after we went to Mass, and Ward made these delicious hard-boiled eggs, and we just put this little bit of mayonnaise and Dijon mustard on them, and he made a tomato salad with basil for the side, and then we had some toast. And when I was eating those tomatoes, I said, okay, Warren, do these tomatoes taste fishy to you? And he's like, no, not really, but I think I can taste the fish. So that's my tomato story. I think I need to figure out another food to put on them because it does make a difference. When the soil just gets depleted from the nutrients that the plant needs, they don't grow very well. They don't produce very well. Of course, being a dietitian, I can see so many analogies between feeding our plants and feeding ourselves well that I could just bore you to tears. But if you struggle with your container gardens, please not only be sure to water them, but feed your plants and your vegetables, and you will be an amazing gardener. You will have an amazing batch of flowers that stay green and bloom all summer long. When we went away on our vacation, my pet sitter said, "You have such a green thumb." And I said, "It's actually this little secret I have. I water the flowers and I feed them at the same time." And didn't always do that. Finally figured it out, but it truly has been life-changing. Okay, so that is way off the topic of what we're here to talk about today, but I am in the middle of finishing up my video series called Grow Your Audience Masterclass. If you haven't registered, be sure to head on down to the show notes, click the link, register for the masterclass, and you can watch the video series. It's 3 parts about growing your audience without performing for social media algorithms. So this topic of a cookbook audience has been on my mind. And it's actually very similar to an audience for a podcast. There are people that pay attention to the podcast. There are people that listen to the podcast. Same thing is true for cookbooks. There's people that buy cookbooks, read cookbooks, and follow people and pay attention to people who write cookbooks. So this show is for those of you who want to write a cookbook or who have written a cookbook that need to grow your audience. Because an audience is people, and people are the ones that will buy your books. And when we write a book, we usually want to sell it so that other people will benefit from the book, have some joy from the book that we wrote. So over the years of talking to authors, students in my programs, people who show up in my inbox, other chefs and dietitians, culinary professionals who message me, I keep hearing the same 5 things over and over about audience growth. And I think some of these myths are just kind of out there, things that we hear, or maybe it's a truth for other types of audience growth, but for cookbooks, it might not really apply. And some of these things are things that I had to learn in growing my own audience. So these 5 things come from a combination of what I've heard my students say and what I've experienced myself. And the thing about a myth is they're myths. Okay. And I don't just mean that they're wrong, like technically wrong, because that's not true. But what I mean when I say they're a myth is if you look at audience growth in the way that I'm going to talk about, it is going to cost you something. There's an actual cost to growing your audience for a physical cookbook this way. It might cost you time. It might cost you momentum in your project. It might cost you getting a book deal or finding an agent. It might cost you book sales. It might cost you never even writing your book to begin with. So that's why I call them myths. And like I said, I've believed some of these myself. I've watched them play out in the lives of my students and and pay attention to other people who talk about publishing and talk about getting book deals. What I want to couch this discussion as is maybe a little bit of a reset. I want to walk you through 5 things I hear about audience building and what's actually true underneath them, according to people in the industry, and not just me, but some research that I've done to clear these things up, because I don't want it to cost you time. I want you to spend your life and your energy on things that move the needle and put your energy toward the one thing that actually gets your book in front of people who are ready to buy it. Okay, so let's dive in. Number 1 is my followers are my audience. So this is a big one, and I want you to think about followers on social media as people who literally just scroll by your page or your information or your content. They are looking for entertainment for a flash second. They might double tap that they like something. They might save a post to a folder, but they never, ever come back to you again. They just keep scrolling. Think about that as attention that you get from them. You're gaining their attention, but you don't have access to that person as a reader in your audience. And this really, truly isn't just my opinion. I've studied what Jane Friedman has to say about this. She has spent years studying what actually gets nonfiction books sold. She talks about platforms. Platforms are not follower count. A platform is your credibility and your authority on a topic combined with your visibility and your reach to actually get readers who are going to buy your book. So credibility, authority, visibility, and reach. Okay. And an algorithm on social media determines who sees what. Okay. And so that's why we can't think of our followers as our audience. And the other thing to think about is if you have a follower on TikTok or you have a follower on Instagram or you have a follower on Facebook, that follower lives on the land that Instagram, I should say Meta, they actually have Instagram and Facebook. X is not, it's Twitter. TikTok, that's someone else's rented space. You don't own that space, and you don't control who sees you when you are there. You have no say if the rules change, if the platform goes down. The algorithm is really in control of what other people see. Okay? It's in between you and your readers. No platform can stop showing you to the people who already said yes to hearing from you. And that's what we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But when you're on social media and you're just tracking followers, there's an algorithm that determines everything. And so it's a myth. It's not a great way to build an audience of readers. It's, and for people that are listening that are already food, nutrition, culinary professionals, dietitians, experts, you already have expertise. You don't need to build your influence through a huge following on social media. Okay, the second myth is that you need the book deal before you can start building the audience. I've heard this a few times, but this is obviously backwards. What's backwards is when we think that if we get the deal, then we build the platform and then we get the readers. But if you want to talk to anybody who actually evaluates nonfiction proposals for a living, you're going to hear the opposite. Editors at publishing houses and agents talk very plainly about this. Okay, they recommend that aspiring authors, people who want to write cookbooks, start building their platform. I've read even 3 years before you get your first book deal. Specifically because you need time to let that platform grow and for you to really engage with what your platform is. Now, I don't know if 3 years is true or not, because I don't really know consciously when I actually decided to start growing my platform before I got my first book deal. But the point of it is that it's the audience building and the growth of your audience takes place before the book deal. Okay, that's the order that things would go in. Don't wait for the book deal to grow your audience. People that get book deals tend to already have access to readers. They're not waiting for the deal before they start. And if you delay one thing, it would be delay pitching for the book deal and focus on growing your list, growing your audience. Okay, that's the solution to that particular myth. The book deal would not come first. Audience growth would. Now, the third myth is a lot of people think that the publisher will do it all. That used, maybe back in the old days, I don't know, publishers might have done it all. That as the author, we just write the book, and once it's published, the publisher will take care of everything when it comes to distribution and sales. But it's pretty clear that that is definitely not how it works anymore, especially in categories like cooking, and nutrition, where platforms do matter a lot. Nonfiction books in categories like self-help or business or cooking are held to probably the highest platform expectations in the industry. Publishers in these categories are looking for authors who already bring readers with them to the publishing relationship, not authors who plan to build the relationships after they get the book deal. Okay, so we are held to high standards as cookbook authors. Bring your readers with you. It's almost like BYOB. You could say BYOR, bring your own readers. They love it when you bring readers to the relationship. You're expected to already have people who look to you as an authority, which means you've established authority somewhere. You have credibility. People might be on an email list who look forward to hearing from you. Marketing and PR from a publisher can support a launch once the book is out, but they amplify everything that is already there. They don't really create readership, they're amplifiers of that. So if you walk into a book deal assuming that the publisher is going to conjure up your readers and they're going to amplify it, that's not true. You'll just be waiting around for a book deal that will never happen. Focus on growing your connections with people, build trust, build relationships. That is an amazing thing to do before you get a book deal, and it actually will help you get a book deal and could certainly prevent you from getting a book deal if you haven't done it already. Myth number 4 is that if the book is good enough, it'll just sell itself. And I can kind of understand why people might think this. It means all you have to do is write really well and the rest is going to take care of itself. But that's not true either. Nonfiction books point to something that other fiction books don't have to worry about, and that is positioning. And whether the author is already positioned in a market to reach the audience who wants the book. It's not necessarily about the quality of the writing itself. The quality of the writing matters, but you have to be positioned and ready to reach an audience who wants to buy the book. It's not the thing that gets a book in front of people. A well-written book that nobody knows about still needs someone to buy it the day it's available and is ready to buy, and that doesn't happen just with no effort. People need to be made aware of it. People need to know that the book is coming out. And this happens because an author has intentionally built a relationship with their readers before the books ever hit the shelves. So if you write a high-quality book, you're going to have a great book, but it doesn't have access to people unless you have people waiting for the book to be published. And it's almost like the writing of the book and building the readership are two different jobs. And that's kind of hard sometimes to swallow, but I think that there's ways that you can grow your audience, practice writing, connecting with people. It's exactly what I'm talking about in the masterclass. And then be very proud when you do get a book deal or you do get your book published because you've written a great book and you have the readership ready. So a good book alone is not enough anymore, especially in these nonfiction categories. You need to have readers ready to buy the book. And then myth number 5 is that some people who want to write a book say they'll build their audience later once things settle down. I think that's such a fascinating thing to think about is there's a lot of things in our life that we might be putting off doing, and we say, well, we'll do that once things settle down. But I have started to believe that things won't really ever settle down. It feels so smart to think that way, but it's really not, because things happening in my life are because I'm alive and I'm active and I have active adult children. We like to spend time together. They're getting married next year. I'm not going to wait to do what I need to do in my business and for my audience until things settle down, because that point will probably never arrive. And so I'm just asking you, if you've ever thought that, to really investigate that thought. Try not to wait for the perfect time to start, because it'll almost never come. There's always something urgent for us all to do. There's always a deadline. There's always a class to teach. There's always the next thing. But this audience building is like the slow moving undercurrent of everything that we do. And it will never appear urgent. Okay. But if you want to write a book and you want to sell it, or you want to get a book deal, you need to have this growing audience and start working on it now. This will make a lot of difference in how you relate to your audience, their ability to trust you, and your ability to bring readership to a relationship with an agent or a publisher and get a book deal. So it's not just a nice to have thing. It's really like infrastructure. So don't wait until things settle down in your life. They probably never will. And start working on building your audience now. So here's what all these myths have in common. Every one of them gives us permission to wait on growing our audience, or assuming that we can skip it instead of actually working on it now. But the truth of it is that even if you clear up the myths, it doesn't really fully solve having access to people and the right kind of access. That's two different things. I've watched people grow thousands of followers and never sell a single book. So I shouldn't say never sell a single book, but there's a disconnect between the number of followers they have and the number of books that they sell. And I've also watched people just engage a few hundred people, land a deal, and sell thousands of books. So there's not always an exact representation between the number of people in your audience versus the number of books you sell. But the truth of the matter is you have to have an audience for a book deal. And even if you self-publish, you need an audience to sell your book to. So I highly recommend growing an audience and starting that today if you haven't already. And that's exactly what I'm teaching in the Grow Your Audience Masterclass without performing for social media algorithms. Someone told me that they're avoiding social media because of internet politics. They are essentially hiding their expertise and their great personality because of internet politics. But I talk about a way to grow your audience that you can get around that. You don't have to worry about that. You can dive in and build your authority without worrying about internet politics. So if you're interested in learning more about that, head on down to the link in the show notes and you can register for the Grow Your Audience Masterclass. You can learn all about the secret to growing it without social media algorithms, and I would love to see you there. So that is it for today's 5 myths about audience growth and this episode of the Cookbook Love Podcast. This is your host, Maggie Green, and until next time, have a great day and keep loving your cookbooks.
Thanks for listening to the Cookbook Love Podcast. You can find out more information at www.cookbooklove.co.